Stories change us, inspire us, encourage us, and keep us going. Green Chair Conversations is the place where story and change meet through authentic conversation as we learn and grow from a diversity of voices. Welcome to Green Chair Conversations. Hey everyone, today we are on location at the FedEx Forum in downtown Memphis with Michael Wallace from Grind City Media. Today, Michael is going to share his journey through grief and how we can pursue growth and celebrate the small successes. Michael, thank you for having us in your space.
Thank you for having me as well. I know how important and wonderful Green Chair Conversations are. I wanted to get the autograph of the chairs on the way in. We talked about that because I know how many wonderful, remarkable people have sat in this space. So welcome to FedEx Forum. Welcome to downtown.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Grind City Media. I love what you guys are doing. And I love, essentially 2016, right? You moved to Memphis and you kind of launched this whole thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was one of the situations where I was with ESPN for 10 years in Miami, covering the NBA, the Miami Heat, LeBron James, all of the great players that have come through there, Shaquille O'Neal, Pat Riley. And it just so happened that, I had an opportunity to transition. All great things come to an end or come to a transition. And one of my last assignments with ESPN was to come here to cover the Grizzlies during their playoff run when Mike Conley happened to break his face. And sitting in the arena, this very arena right here, I sat next to a vice president who had the concept of growing his own digital media imprint here with Grind City Media. So under the direction of owner Robert Parra, Jason Wexler, our president, John Pugliese, our vice president, we crafted the opportunity for me to come and help start Grind City Media, our internal media brand.
That's really neat. And I have to highlight this because we were just talking about the Rise and Grind.
Yes.
And you were telling me, I didn't realize this, that it's like the two female hosts, which is rare.
It is rare. Jessica Benson and Megan Triplett are the only two female hosts of an internal digital media team in any sport. So that show is so unique. You can catch Rise and Grind every single morning, Monday through Friday from 8 to 9:30. It's basically one of our flagship shows along with the Chris Vernon show. So if you're from Memphis, everyone knows Chris Vernon, right? And we're just so fortunate and blessed to have that kind of talent come here and help anchor what we do for Grind City Media.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your personal story, your journey. This past August was 1 year since your wife passed away.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing a little bit of that journey?
No, it's it's never easy to share, but I also see the growth in what we had to grieve through. And grieving is an ongoing process. My wife, LaShawn Wallace, a wonderful woman, we had just celebrated our 20th anniversary in November of 2019. We had just come off of a international cruise where she's an avid runner, and we ran 5 5Ks in 7 islands over 7 days.
5 5Ks?
5 5Ks.
Oh, wow.
And, we came back and unfortunately a couple of months later, she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer that spread to the liver. And it was a short, brave battle. And, when someone is the center of your world and center of your family like that, to lose her was devastating. It is devastating, but fortunately, we had a lot of people from Hope, a lot of people from Memphis wrap their arms around us and help me and my children get through this process. Yeah. And it's going to be something that our life has changed, but our strength and our faith in God has persevered. And every day is a new day, a new opportunity, and a new challenge. She's a wonderful woman. She basically worked as an ambassador on the Memphis riverfront. So she helped with everything that's going on the riverfront right now. She was also a communications advisor for Junior League of Memphis. She was with Arise to Read with Hope, involved in so many different things, Orange Mound Community Center. She just did so many things, and I'm fortunate that her legacy still lives on the riverfront and beyond.
And tell me a little bit about your family, your kids.
Kevin, 12 years old.
Okay.
He's a 7th grader at Grizzlies Prep. Kelly, 9 years old. Okay. She's a 4th grader at Downtown Elementary. So we're a downtown family. We're like Pastor Eli. We're a downtown crew, right?
Yes.
And we see him. My wife and I used to see him all the time running along Riverside Drive. So, it's one of those things where, everywhere we turned around, we saw somebody from Hope, or we felt the love of someone from Hope. So my family is strong. It's me and my 2 youngest kids now. Okay. We do have a 22-year-old set of twins, boy, girl. Corey is a musician, full scholarship guy at University of Memphis. Played the national anthem here a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes, on the saxophone. My daughter Courtney is man, she's she's the brains of the family. She just started a PhD program at Florida A&M University in environmental chemistry. So,
oh, wow.
Yes. So we're going to rely on her knowledge and all the rest to get us the rest of the way.
That's great. Yeah. And you guys, one of the things when we were talking, you shared with me, you and your wife had such a heart for foster care and adoption.
Yes, we did. When we lived in Miami, we became licensed foster parents.
Okay.
And it started because, my wife and I had our twins, and we had the itch to become parents again, right? And for whatever reason, that just wasn't our path. And so we couldn't have biological kids. And my wife, obviously her heart is a heart of gold. So we looked into fostering. We fostered 17 children over a span of 4 years who have come into our homes in short-term or long-term stays. And after about 4 years of that, we decided to adopt the last 2 children that were placed with us, and that was Kevin and Kelly. Right. So it's just been a beautiful thing. We started a nonprofit foundation to help. It was called Duffels for Kids. LaShawn started that, where we raised money to purchase big duffel bags so that children transitioning from one foster home to another, or even back home, were able to go with some dignity instead of having trash bags, which is how we picked up most of our kids.
Yeah, that's really neat. That's really neat. Yeah. And so talk me through, for you, navigating this. I mean, grief, like you said, is a long-term thing. I mean, talk me through what has helped, what has hindered along the way.
A lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. Seeing others share their story. I'm not the only one in the world who's lost someone close to them, especially during this last year and a half. The pandemic has ravaged a lot of families. It took my heart and soul and my wife, my soulmate. We were together for half of our lives, and it's just one of those deals where when you have that kind of loss, especially with young children, it really shakes you to your core and your foundation, and you figure out what's at that core, what's at that foundation. And every time I got to that point, I picked up the Bible, I picked up a devotional, I wrote my feelings down in journals, I spoke to therapists, I was in Hope's Grief Share program, and all of those things. I'm in Stephen's ministry. So, I don't have all the answers to how to get through grief, and I certainly don't have all the answers to the questions that I have, but I do know what I have to do to continue to be a father to my children and to be, an example in this community. And that's one of the main things. And every time I think about what I'm doing, I think, what will LaShawn want me to do? She wouldn't want me down here, sulking and crying and not being able to figure out all the lessons that she's taught us. So I just try to draw on the strength of my devotionals and my pastoral team at Hope, and that's been a huge help.
And I really appreciate you mentioning, when we were talking about this, you were sharing and very transparently about the Grief Share community and sharing about therapy. I feel like there's stigmas with all of that, right? Like going to a group or going to a counselor. But those are things that help the healing process. And even one of the things you've been so open about is you, like early on right after your wife passed, you came on camera here at Grind City Media and you shared your story. You've been so transparent through this journey. And that helps people. I mean, just sharing your story over and over again, as hard as it is, but that's a huge piece in your journey and story.
Thank you. And I felt guided through that. Some of my colleagues here with the Grizzlies and Grind City Media, asked me, how did I get through that, that segment that I did on Rise and Grind? And that was only a couple of days after LaShawn was buried. And I told them, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I knew that it was my turn to get up and thank the city of Memphis, to thank the Memphis Grizzlies, to thank Hope Church, to thank all of the my school, my children's teachers and principals who have all reached out to make sure we were okay, and that still continues to this day. I still get baked lasagnas sent home and recipes and things of that nature, and it's one of those things where even before LaShawn passed, my kids were active with the Grizzlies, and they considered themselves the Grizzlies kids, and they still are in a lot of ways. So it's not easy, but I do know that there are people out there hurting who can learn something from my story. And God as my witness, I'm still going to continue to show the love I have for Christ and His story of resurrections and transformation. And I can do that with LaShawn with me. She's as much as a part of me now as she's ever been.
Yes.
And I feel her presence every single day.
Yes, absolutely. And you said something that has just so deeply resonated and stuck with me. And you said kind of one of the lessons you're learning through this journey is celebrating the small successes. I love that.
Yes.
I think that's so good.
Yes, because we tend to, as people, we tend to focus on the negativity. We tend to focus on the challenges and the burdens, and we overlook the blessings. And we can't do that. And, there's not a day that goes by where, I don't isolate and focus on the blessings, because we know that there's going to be adversity.
Yeah.
We know there's going to be challenges. And the best way to do that, and I can tell you our secret in the Wallace household right now, when we have technically a tough day emotionally, there's always ice cream, right? There's always ice cream, and there are a lot of great ice cream shops in Memphis, and that might create another issue, for therapy and help.
Yeah.
But my kids love ice cream. We make our own sundaes at home, and sometimes we go out and get them. But we also write. We write a lot. We draw pictures. Kelly has become an excellent artist at showcasing what her grief and what her recovery through grief is. And that's one of the things that she always had a talent to create, but her therapists have allowed her to use her art as a canvas, to draw pictures of her mom and what she's feeling and write out those things. And Kevin does the same thing. He's done it with sports and youth baseball. His team won the city championship at 13 years old for the Memphis Little League championship. And every single time that something like that happens, the first thing we think is, man, mommy would love this. LaShawn would love this. And I tell him, you know what, mommy is loving this.
Yes.
And she's in our hearts, she's in our minds, and she's up with God right now, and they're both cheering us on. And that's one of the things that's gotten us through.
That's really, really good. And so what would you tell the person that is in the middle of navigating loss, in the middle of navigating grief? What would you say to them?
You have to do the work.
Yeah.
You have to do the grief work. I was not a guy that, traditionally went to therapy. I didn't talk about my problems. I internalized them and thought I was strong enough to get through anything. But at some point, life buckles you and it knocks you to your knees. And while you're down there, go ahead and pray and figure out a way to start picking yourself up. Therapy has helped. Journaling has helped. Celebrating the small successes has helped. Acknowledging what my kids are going through at school has helped. Being a pillar in the community, going out and getting active and involved in other things to take you out of your mindset so that you can pour into others has helped. And being in programs like Grief Share, you see your growth there. How I felt in session 1 was sort of different than how I felt in session 12 and 13 as we were wrapping up. And then that next cycle, I reapplied and got back in again because I wanted to tell the story of growth to those who were just coming into the grieving process. And it's sort of paying forward. And we all have to do that. That's with, burdens and blessings. It comes with both, and you just have to find that balance.
That's good. So what would you say, we said celebrate the small successes.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. What other lessons have you been learning through this? I love that you talked to me a little bit about statistics with widowers, which was interesting. I had no clue about that.
You know what, and I kept, because one of the things that's, I've looked for is a mentor, someone who has gone through, as number one, 85% of those who lose a spouse are women, right? Typically, it's a woman who loses their husband, right? I'm in that 15%. And then when I broke down those statistics, through Baptist Good Grief and other therapy and readings, they show me that not only that, then I'm an African-American male with school-age kids. So that puts me in another smaller category. And so basically what it showed is that my situation is so unique. And we all grieve differently, but when you're looking for someone to help you through your process, who went through something similar, I really couldn't find that. And Jessica, that's why I'm so blessed to be a part of Green Chair Conversations, because maybe there's another man out there in my situation or who has some similarities to me, who needs to hear this. And if that's the case, then that's one more step that someone can take that I wasn't able to take initially. And and that makes it all worth it, to me. So that's another small success, to be an example, to show that, yes, I get angry, I question why God, but then I transition those questions to what's next, God. what do you have for me now to do with this? This grief is not going to go away, but how can I channel it into growth? And how can I help others grow? How can I be a better father, a better person in the community? What can the kids in Memphis and the families in Memphis learn from this? And those are all challenges that, God willing, I will find the strength each day to face and to tackle.
And that's why I'm so thankful for you being here as well. You touched on that too, but yeah. I mean, these are the things that are hard to talk about, and so thank you for doing this, but it's exactly for this reason, this is kind of a community of people, and whether we're online or in person or whatever we're doing, we're able to kind of care for each other, and your experience and wisdom is going to help somebody who is going through this. And so I am so thankful for your willingness to be vulnerable.
Thank you. It doesn't feel well. It doesn't feel great. I don't really celebrate the vulnerability, but I acknowledge it. And one of the things that I learned early on in the process is, if I want my kids to be able to grieve the right way or the best way they can, they have to see me grieve. And to let, we have cry sessions. Every single Sunday, you ask me how I cope and how we grow. Every Sunday is our music, my soft music session. And I would have a playlist of me and LaShawn's favorite slow songs that we dated to and courted to and danced to. And they know, okay, Dad's in his moment right now, right? So let's go watch something on TV. And we would have the music blasting and, playing the slow songs. So those are all things that we celebrate together. We get her favorite slushie from Sonic when we pass Sonic. And, so it's different things that we do to still keep those family traditions going. But they also know that, Dad, one day we're going to be together again. And for them to say that to me, they're a blessing. I told you at the beginning, they were adopted. They're not our biological children. So in and of itself, from the very beginning, they were God's gift to us. And they're especially God's gift to me right now because they keep me going.
That's really, really good. Okay, so as we wrap up this conversation, I mean, what do you want to leave people with listening today? I mean, I am, again, still so thankful for your vulnerability and sharing this. And what do you want to leave people with?
Well, I mean, and we have a couple of items here. This is Marc Gasol's shoe.
Yes.
Right? And we talked about, Marc Gasol, obviously, Tony Allen, Zach Randolph are going to get their jerseys retired this season for the Memphis Grizzlies. Marc Gasol and Mike Conley are going to be next after that. They're members of the Core Four. But when I visit schools and talk to kids, I bring this shoe with me all the time. And this is one of the shoes that Marc Gasol left for me for that purpose. And it's a size 17. And when you go into a school and you say, listen, only one person can fill these shoes, that's Marc Gasol. Not many people around wear size 17. We're all unique in our journeys, right? So live your life. Understand that your journey is one that's unique. And even with me, and my journey is so unique where I have to learn that this is a unique path that God has chosen for me. And if I can align with God's will and God's wisdom and be open, transparent, and receptive, then I'm going to be able to fill my shoes, my version of my shoes one day. And hopefully that can be an example to other people as well. So keep living. Know that there are people out there that love you. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be weak. But it's okay to grow. One of the most beautiful things is also the most painful thing about life, childbirth. I've never delivered a child before. But it's the most agonizing pain that a human can go through to get to the other side of the most beautiful thing that they can experience. And there's going to be a beautiful life out there for me and my kids with LaShawn in our spirit. And we just have to do the work to get through this process.
That's good. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing the shoe. That's a perfect illustration. I love that. My little 7.5 foot would take up like a fourth of this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you for having us here in the FedEx Forum. This has been really, really fun. And this is going to be a blessing to so many people I know. So thank you.
No problem at all. And there are a lot of great people who attend Hope. Hope was one of the first choices I made when I moved to Memphis in 2016. An intern with the Memphis Grizzlies recommended Hope.
Oh,
we've been there ever since.
Since
neat. Labor Day of 2016.
That's really neat.
You never know who you're going to meet, who's going to guide you to the places that were meant for you to be.
That's really neat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is a wrap for our Green Chair conversation with Michael Wallace. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Instagram account, as well as the Green Chair Conversations podcast. We love you guys and can't wait for Who's Up next week.